So Hillary Clinton agreeing to testify before the House Select Committee on Benghazi, but she will do it once, one day, and she will stay as long as needed. According to her lawyer, the committee has asked that she testify twice. They want to talk to her one day on Benghazi and then another day on the use of private emails and the private server while she was at the State Department. That's the one she doesn't really want to do, apparently. But Clinton's team called that request very unusual, saying in part, quote, "On such a day, she will stay as long as necessary to answer the committee's questions, but will not prolong the committee's efforts further by appearing on two separate occasions when one will suffice." That from David Kendall, longtime attorney to the Clintons. John Bolton is former U.S. ambassador to the UN and a Fox News contributor. And you're laughing. Why?
Well, this is standard Clinton tactics. She's afraid of this committee. I think she should be. Unlike earlier testimony before the House and the Senate on Benghazi, these folks are going to be very prepared. I think they'll be more disciplined than, to be frank about it, the average House or Senate committee that looks for face time for their member. Under Trey Gowdy, I think they'll have a more prosecutorial approach to ask questions, not listen to their own rhetoric. And what it says is that maybe Congressman Gowdy came in too low. He should have asked for 4 days of hearings, and maybe he would have gotten 2.
You know, I've heard Trey Gowdy say that he doesn't want her to come back until he gets the documents. So we may never see that this moment happen, because there's a real standoff where that's concerned. It's
dragging out for sure, and I think this time there's no argument that it's the committee prolonging it for political reasons. It's exactly the right point to make. Any good litigator will tell you they want to see the documents, then talk to the witnesses. Another possibility, though, given that the House Foreign Affairs Committee really has oversight jurisdiction over the State Department, how it runs, what its policies are, maybe they ought to pick up the email server point and have former Secretary Clinton testify before them on that. Let Gowdy go ahead just on the Benghazi effort and have a full day in open session.
You know, I've heard you say that she needs to answer questions, but she doesn't sit down for interviews. You know, you watch all these Republican potential candidates, they're out there all the time answering questions. At some point, she's going to have to answer people's questions. And this, you know, would be, as you say, a pretty tough forum for her, because these guys have been going through whatever documents they have. There's a lot of stuff that they still want to get their hands on.
Yeah, and it's a question about being methodical. The other thing the committee ought to do is get her testimony in closed session with just a few people in the room. No,
she doesn't want to go in the closed room and talk about the email server.
Yeah, that's the way a litigator would do it. You take somebody's deposition before you put them on in court. And Secretary Clinton has avoided questions on Benghazi from the outset. Remember Susan Rice's famous circuit of the 5 Sunday talk shows? I think the job of UN ambassador is a great job. It has absolutely nothing to do with our ambassador to Libya. Secretary Clinton should have been on those 5 shows answering the questions that day. So she's dodged it from the get-go, and I think now the moment of real truth is coming. She's very nervous.
Do you think it'll happen? I mean, I have real doubts as to whether or not she's going to sit in front of them, because if she doesn't produce the documents that they want, and she says the documents don't exist, her lawyer says everything that she ever worked on is also in the State Department server. So they're not giving up any more documents, doesn't sound like.
Well, I think there's a lot more to look through. I mean, as we've seen in the case of the IRS, emails and files mysteriously turn up. The famous Rose Law Firm files turned up in her closet at the White House.
Who knew? We looked everywhere for them.
If I were Gowdy, I would not give up. And as I say, you can't blame him for pushing this further into the election season. He's doing the best he can.
Yeah. All right, Ambassador Bolton, thanks.
Thank
Always
you.
good to see you. Bill?
So his fellow officers loved him.